And some other updates also now coming in. We're understanding the Indian High Commissioner Manpreet Vohra has visited the Iskon temple in Melbourne. And this is what he said: blessed to visit the iconic Iskon Krishna temple in Albert Park, Melbourne. This is another holy place that was vandalized recently by pro-Khalistani elements. Their hate-filled graffiti was threatening to the peaceful Indian-Australian community in Melbourne and must be stopped. Let me bring in my colleague Siddhant, who in fact was getting us those voices of eyewitnesses and other authorities as well. Siddhant, there is a pattern, a clear pattern that is emerging. You know, vandalizing temples, this is something that we've been seeing being repeated in Australia. When you were speaking to the eyewitness and other authorities, the crucial word to note there was that these Indians were attacked, and they were in fact attacked despite being unprovoked. They were not provoking others on the ground. What are eyewitnesses telling you? Who really was behind these attacks?
Well, look, first of all, these are not some spontaneous attacks which happened or clash that broke out between two sides. These are well-orchestrated attacks. And in fact, this is a well-orchestrated design against the Indians living in Australia. And from last 1 month, this has been going on, or perhaps for more than a year, this has been going on. Boys like Vishal Sood, Shubham Garg have been targeted. Then Indian students are targeted time and again in Australia. This time around, from last 1 month, first Indian Hindu temples are vandalized. The graffiti of pro-Khalistani groups were drawn on the Indian temples. And then now what happened yesterday in Melbourne is something which Australian authorities should be ashamed of, because despite being aware of the antecedents of Sikh for Justice and the pro-Khalistani groups, they were allowed to conduct that event of referendum yesterday at a Federation Square. And when Indian students protested, they were countered with violence. They were beaten up with metal rods, wooden sticks, and whatnot. 3 of them are seriously injured, and many others have also suffered injuries. Now, the Indian Envoy has started this outreach program, and perhaps in the morning he has visited BAP's Swaminarayan temple. Now he has visited Iskon temple in Melbourne, and he is speaking to the Indian community. He's having a dialogue, and in fact he's assuring Indian community that they are safe in Melbourne, and Indian High Commission's office is keeping a close eyes on the development, and the culprits will be booked and will be sent behind the bars. So to develop an atmosphere of positivity, assurance and safety, Indian High Commissioner is leaving no stone unturned, and in fact he's visiting all these temples which were vandalized by pro-Khalistani groups last month.
Right. Siddhant, what I also want to understand, what is also very, very clear, that there is a farce of what is being called as a referendum, and under that garb, we are seeing these episodes of violence only increase. But what is also crucial to note is, and this is again something what students and even eyewitnesses are telling you, that warning letters were given to the police. Despite all of that, why is no action being taken?
Absolutely, and in fact, we have accessed those letters written to Minister of Police in Australia, was written to Federation Square administration. These two bodies didn't even pay attention to the letter written by Australian Hindu Association. I mean, this is nothing but making mockery of the entire situation which is mushrooming in Australia. And also, the government in Australia should understand this, that these are not some random groups, taking part in anti-India activities. These are the terror groups backed by ISI. And in fact, today they are threat to the Indian community, peaceful, patriotic Indian community living in Melbourne, countryside, and the other parts of Australia. Tomorrow, they can even become a threat to their own citizens living in Melbourne. I mean, creating a law and order situation despite knowing the antecedents of these groups. And this is perhaps the reason that now Australian authorities are on a back foot. Because despite the letters being given to them, there was no adequate police arrangement. There was no proper barricading done by the Australian police. And in fact, the Indian High Commissioner had also raised similar points in a meeting with Premier of Victoria.
Correct.
So there are lots on the part of authorities, and in fact, it's a larger question is that what about the security of Indians, safety of Indians living in Melbourne?
Oh, absolutely.